So you are listening to This Is My Story here on UCB2 with me, Matt Brown. And our first guest on today's show is Esther Grace James. Good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm glad to hear it, and thank you for asking. I'm a lot better than I was a fair few weeks ago when I had to have a day off, but really glad to be joined by you today and hear your incredible story. Before we get into that, though, I'm going to tell people. I know you're a listener to UCB1. We're not going to hold it against you here on UCB2 because we are a family, of course. But would you tell us a little bit more about yourself and then we'll dive into your story?
Yeah, of course. My name's Esther Grace. I'm in my early 30s. I've recently started my own business, released my first book, and yeah, obviously I'll tell you a little bit more about my story as we go ahead in the interview today. But yeah, I'm very passionate about mental health and trauma awareness being raised, and also, of course, passionate about Jesus and people hearing about him and how he's able to bring restoration and change and healing.
Amazing. Well, we're going to take a trip back through at least a couple of decades, as you've given us a clue to your age today. By all accounts, a lot of people would say when they hear what you're about to share with us, you didn't have the easiest start in life and not the start that you might have hoped for. So tell us a bit about your upbringing and what you experienced.
I was brought up in the care system as a child. I went into care when I was around 13 months old because my mum and my dad weren't well enough to look after me. And yeah, I spent, the next 16 and a half years until my 18th birthday in the care system and experienced a lot of moved around a lot, experienced quite a lot of traumatic experiences. And I had a lot of, beautiful moments and memories and things too. It wasn't all challenging, but there was a lot of difficulties and yeah, like traumatic experiences, like I said.
Yeah. And we don't need to go into the greater details of those, but quite often we can be mistaken because of the way that kids in care are sometimes portrayed in television and in radio and in film. When they get the Hollywood treatment, there are the lows will be lower, the highs will be higher, and we kind of form this picture of what the reality of life in the care system might be like. But it's only when you've experienced it firsthand that you really know the reality and some of the challenges that that brings up. Now, my dad worked in social services in children's care for many years, and I've had the privilege of working as a children's and youth worker in different roles. But one of the things I've worked hard on with young people in the past is their sense of identity. I remember one particular young person who had no idea who his dad was, and identity for him was a real hurdle, which was a massive struggle to get over because ultimately he didn't really know where he'd come from. Now, you've already told us that your parents weren't well enough to look after you, but we would assume that there was probably contact from time to time with your own parents as you were brought up in the care system. How did you find some of those struggles that some young people find with identity impacted on you?
Oh, that's a very good question. For a lot of my childhood years, felt like I was on survival mode. So I didn't fully explore who I was. I didn't fully know who I was. I believed a lot of lies about myself because of the experiences that I was going through in terms of, being moved from place to place. I, believed a lie at that time that I was unwanted, unloved, and, even believed lies at that time that, I was a bad person or that things were happening to me because of my own actions and because of my own fault. And you know a lot of children kind of internalize difficult situations. When
Yeah.
difficult situations happen, a lot of children can internalize that and think that it's their fault. And so in terms of my identity as a child in the care system, I think I didn't really know who I was. It wasn't until I left the care system on my 18th birthday and then yeah, became an adult that then I actually started exploring and healing and coming to know more about actually who I am and who I was created to be, and obviously had to unlearn and get rid of a lot of those lies that I'd believed for such a long time.
Absolutely. And we're going to come on to some of the ways that life changed once you left the care system very shortly. You talked there a bit about not really knowing who you were and those feelings of thinking you were unwanted, thinking that you were unloved. That's got to have an impact on your own mental health as you're navigating and grappling with some of that. What were some of the ways that that showed itself, if you don't mind sharing with us?
Yeah, so I self-harmed quite a lot in the care system. I used to drink, alcohol quite often. I would kind of display a lot of challenging behaviors. And yeah, I guess people didn't always understand why I was behaving in those ways, but some of that was obviously rooted in lies, and because I didn't fully know who I was, I was just kind of doing what I felt I needed to do at that time to get my needs met. And obviously, in the eyes of other people, it displays itself or looks like challenging behaviors. Yeah. So I don't know if I answered that very well, but
No, you absolutely did. Now, at some point in your life, there came a moment of transformation. You've already talked about the fact that you left the care system on your 18th birthday, as over the years has been customary. And we're really glad to say that there is better support now for young people leaving the care system than there used to be. Charities like the National House Projects are providing support accommodation. What was your experience when you left the care system on your 18th birthday? Was it a case of, there you go and live your life, we've done our bit? Or was there other support that was available to you?
so I feel like it was a bit of a mixture for me. There was support in that I moved into supported lodgings accommodation, which is basically like I moved in with this lady who it was her own house, and she supported me in terms of learning independent skills, so like how to cook, budget, things like that. And so I did have obviously support from her, and I also had a leaving care worker who again, was a good support to me. But in terms of, if you can imagine being in the care system for 16 and a half years, it's being really structured, having people around pretty much 24/7.
Yeah.
Um, to go from that to then on my 18th birthday, obviously moving in with this lady, but still then being expected to function as a normal adult.
Mm.
So it was obviously quite a culture shock to me, and it was very challenging just going from 24-hour support to obviously support from this lady, but it was very different to having lots and lots and lots of people. And so yeah, it was quite a culture shock really.
Yeah, and in terms of culture shock, did you notice anything different about this lady to what you'd seen in some of the other people that had provided care for you?
Yeah, so the lady that I moved in with is the same lady. So I actually went and visited her before I moved in, and there was just something about her that I really loved, and it was kind of that family feel. I could feel that in her home, and just that peace, love, compassion. Just she just showed that from early on, and she prayed for me. She encouraged me. I wasn't actually a Christian at that point when I first moved in with her, but she wasn't shy about telling me about Jesus, which I'm so thankful for, because obviously that's had a massive impact on my life. And yeah, so she loved me. She, was compassionate, kind, caring, and she took the time to listen. Sometimes we'd sit there for hours just chatting, and she'd just listen to, some of the stories of things that I'd gone through and things that I needed to talk about. And she was just there. She was available. She was willing to, be the hands and feet of Jesus, really.
Mm. Wow. And so we can make the assumption, because you're on This Is My Story today, that there came a point where you responded to the invitation that God was offering you to become a follower of Jesus. So, how did that eventually come about?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, obviously I used to self-harm and get drunk and do a lot of challenging behaviours in that way. And so when I moved in with this lady when I turned 18, some of those behaviors were still present. And so she did invite me to church and, kept praying for me. And I feel like I've always believed in God, even when I was a child in the care system, kind of always believed in God for as far as I can remember. But there just came a moment on one day where I was ridiculously suicidal. I just had enough. Like I actually planned to end my life that day.
Mm.
And I just prayed and I said, God, if you're real, I need your help. I need you to change my life. And then, I did make an attempt, on my life, and thankfully, obviously, I didn't die, and God is amazing and saves, and I'm so thankful for that. And so that would be, I think, the moment where I did kind of reach out to God, and then from there, I then obviously started a relationship with Jesus, started going to church, and but that would be, I think, the first moment where I actually cried out to God, and that's where I guess the transformation started happening, like from that moment.
And of course, once that transformation happened, life was rosy and you've not had any problems ever since, because we all know that's how the Christian life works. Not at all. You can tell that I'm putting my tongue in my cheek when I share that. But you've certainly embraced the opportunity to understand what it is to be loved and wanted by your Heavenly Father. And actually, that's been integral into you getting life onto the narrow path, to use a bit of Christianese with you this morning. How have you seen God at work in and through you since you decided to follow Him?
So, yeah, I gave my life to Christ when I was 18, and then I started this journey with Him. Getting to know His voice for myself, healing and restoration. Got intentional about my healing, and along the journey, I've told many people about Jesus, but often people see your life and they see how different you are. They see how you've been transformed. So, for example, my mum, my stepdad, some of my siblings have seen the transformation over the years, and actually, God has, you know, blessed me to be able to actually speak to them about Jesus. And both my mum, my stepdad, my two brothers. I actually have three brothers, but only speak to two of them, and they've both given their lives to Christ. And also my stepdad and my mum, gave their lives to Christ before they passed away. So it's just, the fact that obviously when God saves you, it's not just for you.
Mm.
It's like it impacts so many other people, which is, a massive blessing, really.
It absolutely is. And you're looking to extend that blessing of sharing your passion for Jesus, as well as your passion for mental health, with other people. You've just had a book published, and you've recently launched a business as well. So tell us about those. Tell us about the motivation behind it all, and what it is and how we can get hold of it.
Yeah, so had a book launch a few weeks back, book and business launch together, and my book is called Restoring the Years, and it has, some lived experience memoirs in there around the care system, meeting Jesus, mental health, trauma stories, healing, restoration, hope, encouragement. There's so much in there, and it's autobiographical. So it's relatively easy for people to read in terms of it's very fluid, and obviously I'm real and honest in there. So yeah, so people can buy that on Amazon, or people can also follow me on my business Instagram, which is called Mighty Oaks. You can follow me on there, Mighty Oaks 2024. And yeah, people can contact me obviously via that as well if they'd like to. But my business as well, it's called Mighty Oaks, based on Isaiah 61. And part of that is that I'm really passionate about talking about what I've been through to help bring change and impact to the system, to the services, so that people who are reliant on services now can get better support. So what I offer, some of what I offer are workshops, services, training. I speak at, I can speak at conferences and events, and I also sing as well. So I sometimes do some singing engagements as well. And it's about raising awareness really of the voice of a service user, but also raising awareness of mental health and trauma and helping, break some of that stigma around mental health. And yeah, so I'm really passionate about that.
So, from your point of view, as a former service user, as someone who's passionate about bringing out positive change, you've got an opportunity right now to speak to people that represent a wide range of churches, not just in the UK, but also beyond. From your point of view, what are some of the key things that we can be praying about, but also practically doing in order to support young people who find themselves in the care system, or those that have been through it and are continuing their journey?
Wow, such a big question. I think a big part of it is being open to listening to the stories of those that have been through such trauma and pain, taking the time to actually sit with and be with people, not necessarily, I know there can sometimes be a lot of structure and agenda with services and, even within church. But I think it's really important to come alongside and be alongside people, journeying with them, doing life with them. Again, like this supported lodgings lady had been to me, be in the hands and feet of Jesus, practically being there physically and listen, yeah, like I say, listening and just helping them kind of process what they've been through compassionately and helping break that stigma around talking about mental health. It needs to be broken, even within churches. It's still a bit of a taboo subject in some churches, and so I think it does need more honest, open conversation, and that's obviously part of what I'm helping to do with my business and speaking and singing engagements as well.
Amazing. Some awesome wisdom there from Esther Grace, who's joined us on This Is My Story today. So, how can people find out more about Mighty Oaks and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can check out my website, which is www.mightyoaks.net. And you can also contact me on email, est@mightyoaks.net.
And that book, Restoring the Years, is available on Amazon. Just search for Restoring the Years by Esther Grace. It's as simple as that. But Esther Grace, you also mentioned that you've released some music as well. And we're going to hear one of your songs as the song choice for today. So tell us what you've chosen and why it's important to share the message of this song with us today.
Yeah, so the song's called Little Girl, and it's a song that I wrote whilst I was processing some difficult childhood trauma. I actually felt like God was pulling me, kind of urging me to go to my keyboard and sing out how I was feeling in that moment. And the day that I wrote it, I was going through a lot of challenging emotions, and it was bringing up some memories from the past. And so actually I was tearful, I was crying. It was quite an intense moment. But as I say, I felt that urge to go and play on the keys, and I just started singing out these lyrics from my little girl song, and it was almost as if the inner child was able to process what needed to be processed from my childhood in the care system. And as I say, I definitely believe it was a God appointed experience and moment. And yeah, releasing it, has been a gift from God for people to understand more about trauma and how it can, affect and impact on people.
Amazing. Well, Esther Grace, thank you so much for being willing to share some of your story today. That book is available from Amazon, Restoring the Years. But to take us to the latest UCB news, this is Esther Grace with Little Girl.